Hey there, kia ora, haere mai, and welcome to my beekeeping journey. My name's Andy G, and I'm super buzzed to share my adventure with you. Sorry, that was a bad joke. I'm brand new to the world of beekeeping. Been doing it about 6 weeks at this point. I'm not an expert, and I don't have all the answers, but that's where you come in, because whether you're also just starting out or you've been beekeeping for years, this is a space where we can all learn together. On my channel, in my videos, I'm going to share everything I'm learning, the successes, the setbacks, and maybe a few stings along the way. It's inevitable, right? But I'd love for you to share your knowledge, your tips, your advice in the comments on each of my videos, because I think beekeeping can be made so much better if we all go on this ride with each other. Now, through the series, the episodes, we'll explore everything from setting up hives and caring for the bees to understanding their fascinating behaviours and role in our ecosystem. They're amazing creatures. Along the way, I'm going to be asking questions, trying new things. We might get some guests on as well, and maybe even making a few mistakes, but that's all part of the fun, right? So if you're ready to follow along, and hopefully you are, because here you are watching, if you're ready to learn a thing or two, maybe even teach me a thing or two as well, hit that subscribe button and join me on this adventure. Love it if you were to play a part in this as well. So let's get buzzing, dive into the world of bees together. And I have to say, massive support from a lot of my friends, which has inspired me to go ahead and make this channel. Because I posted a video to my personal social media page and I got such a good amount of feedback on that, it's inspired me to do this. And this is what I said near the end of that original video. Thanks for following the journey. And if you're interested, a couple of people have said to me, we should start a YouTube channel. I think I might. Are you interested in that? Have to think of a name. So what are we calling the channel? Welcome to Mind Your Buzzness.
The bee, a creature of both grace and chaos. From the moment it emerges from its hive, the bee embarks on a remarkable journey, collecting nectar, making honey, and occasionally getting lost in your garden. With a buzz that strikes fear into the hearts of picnic goers, the bee is, in fact, one of the most industrious creatures on Earth. A marvel and a mystery, if only they could talk and explain themselves.
A poorly done Sir David Attenborough impression. You get the point. Welcome to Mind Your Buzzness. Let's answer some questions. I don't know if you can see the chicken. She's come to say hello. Some of the questions that I've been asked, and a lot of them actually by a colleague of mine at my local fire brigade, Megan, who has been very, very intrigued. And I thought, well, let's answer these now. And hopefully it inspires you to do a bit of beekeeping yourself, or if you're just intrigued, maybe it just answers some of those burning questions that you've had. So question one, how long does a bee generally live? Well, the lifespan of a bee can vary depending on the species of bee, because there's several of them, the role they play, because each bee has a different job. We'll explain that a bit later, and also environmental factors as well, weather, that kind of thing. Worker bees, they're the females, they do most of the foraging and the hive maintenance, and they typically live for 5 to 6 weeks during the summer. Now, their lifespan's a lot shorter because they work so hard and they often wear out pretty quickly. In the colder months though, when the hive is not as active, worker bees can live longer, sometimes 4 to 6 months. Queen bees, they have a much longer lifespan compared to worker bees, so they can live for 2 to 5 years depending on the health of the hive and the environmental factors, as I mentioned, weather. A queen bee's primary role is to lay eggs, and she can live much longer than the workers due to her less physically demanding lifestyle. And then you've got drone bees, which are the lads. They're the male bees whose primary role is to mate with the queen. Now, drones, they generally live for 8 weeks, but they can be booted out of the hive during the colder months and they could die shortly after. Does the queen prepare for her death? Will she die in the hive, and is she replaced by another in the hive? The queen bee doesn't specifically prepare for her death, but over time her egg laying capabilities and capacity declines and she may eventually stop laying eggs at a high rate. Now, as she ages, she may not be able to produce the same amount of pheromones that help regulate the hive's behaviour, especially in the worker bees, the other females. Now, the colony will notice that decline and they'll do what they need to do to make sure that a new queen is ready. So the worker bees, they can raise a new queen from one or more fertilised eggs, and they'll feed the young larvae what they call royal jelly, which is can only really be described as a highly nutritious substance that develops the larvae into a queen bee instead of a worker. It takes around 16 days. The new queen will then emerge and she'll go on a mating flight. She'll only do that once. She'll find herself a willing man, or drone, as I mentioned in the last question, and then she'll come back to the hive and start laying eggs to restore the hive's population. Will the queen die in the hive? Yep, she typically dies in the hive. And when it happens, the workers will quickly recognise the absence of her pheromones, and then they'll begin the process of replacing her. Now, after her death, if no new queen is raised, the colony will eventually collapse. There'll be no eggs to hatch into new worker bees. And the worker bees may then continue to live for a while, but without a queen, they just cannot reproduce. And then the hive will cease to function as a colony. Do bees still go out in the rain? Yep, they generally avoid flying in the rain and they rely on dry, stable weather to fly. Today is the first nice day we've had in about 7 days since I last checked the hive, so I'm not expecting there to be a lot of change in there, but we will have a look later. The thing is, the rain just makes their wings wet, makes them heavier and harder to move. And they use the sun's position and polarised light as well from above to navigate where they're going. Overcast skies and rain, of course, can interfere with their ability to see and orient themselves, and it just makes it so much harder to find their way back to the hive. Doesn't it, love? Yeah. Now, if they get caught in a downpour, if they're out and about when it starts raining, they could become too cold and they might not be able to return to the hive in time. So typically, on rainy days, they stay inside the hive, they engage in activities like nurturing the stored honey, cleaning, taking care of the brood, and taking care of the queen as well. Do you want to go? All right, off you go. I'm loving these questions. How far will they travel from the hive? Well, bees are quite incredible. They're capable of travelling quite far from the hive in search of food. The distance depends on various factors, which includes the species of the bee, the availability of food sources, and of course the weather. When it's a day like this, they're everywhere. Now, the worker bees, they could generally travel 4 to 8 kilometres from the hive, but then bees have been known to travel up to 11 kilometres away or more to forage if necessary. However, it's not very common because if there's food within spitting distance of a hive, they'll go there to the nearest available food source. Think of it like this. If you're craving some fresh donuts and your nearest donut shop is like 5 k's away, you will make the trip if you have to. But if a new store opened right next door to your house, it's more convenient to go there, eh? Okay, so if you've made it this far, thank you. Do randoms ever come and join the hive? That's another good question. In general, bees don't always randomly join hives, but there are a few specific circumstances where outside bees might interact with or enter a hive. One, when bees swarm, some others may possibly join them temporarily. 2, bees from other colonies might invade a hive to steal honey. It's called robbing, which is quite an aggressive act of theft. 3, absconding. So if a hive's conditions become very poor, some bees might leave the hive, may potentially join another colony, which is not really a regular occurrence. And then 4, sometimes a beekeeper might introduce new bees to a hive by adding a new queen or a frame of brood or larvae. That's not random because the beekeeper controls the process to help strengthen or expand a hive, but it is an artificial method of introducing new bees. So, in summary, the main reason why bees don't randomly join a hive is because each hive has a unique scent profile based on the queen's pheromones, and then bees from other colonies, they can detect that. So when a bee tries to enter a hive that doesn't belong to it, the resident bees will likely recognise the foreign scent, and they may attack or drive that intruder away. Do they die in the hive? Yeah, they do, but also when they're out and about as well. Now, workers typically do die inside the hive, but their bodies are often removed from the hive by other worker bees, which helps keep the hive clean. Bees are super tidy. Now, as I mentioned before, when the queen dies, the colony will actually start the process of replacing her by raising a new queen. Drones, the male bees, they usually die after mating with a queen. If they don't mate, they may be expelled or kicked out of the hive as the weather turns cold, which, as I've mentioned, often leads to their death. Next question. I've recently read that an old bee won't return to the hive if they feel the end is near or not to burden the hive. Is there any truth to that? Well, there is some truth to that, but it's not an absolute rule because all bees follow this pattern, but some older or dying bees might indeed leave the hive instinctively to avoid becoming a burden on the colony, especially where the overall health and efficiency of the hive are high priority, and they can take that discipline to their little bee graves. The next question is, how many bees do you think you started with compared to what you have now? Is it a constant rotation of deaths versus hatches of bees? I probably started with a few hundred bees on the 5-frame nuke or nucleus that I purchased off a good mate and work colleague Ash. Ash himself has a history of commercial beekeeping and still has multiple hives. And he is also someone I can rely on as a mentor. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if I was looking now at 4,000 to 5,000 currently, and that's just a very rough guess, but they're definitely a lot bigger than they were when I got them because I have 10 frames inside that bottom box, and we'll look at this soon. I've got 10 frames in the top honey super as well, so they're going to be busy filling all those out, but we'll look at this later. And then the part where it asks if there's a constant rotation of deaths versus hatches of bees. Yep, there are certainly bees that don't make it, but the newly hatched bees far outweigh the ones I lose, hence the colony growing bigger and bigger each week. And that's something I have to keep an eye on as a beekeeper to make sure that they don't overcrowd and decide to swarm. Do they go into a sort of hibernation in the winter when it's cold? That's a good question. They don't hibernate, but they do enter a sort of dormancy during cold weather, but it's not the same as hibernation. They don't completely shut down, but they do reduce their activity down. They tend to huddle in a cluster to stay warm and conserve energy. They keep the hive at a comfortable temperature. They rely on their stored honey for energy to survive those cold months. And the reason why a beekeeper can take honey is because bees will generally make more than they need, but it is a balancing act because beekeepers will feed bees generally a 1-to-1 mix of sugar and water in a special feeder to supplement them during the colder months, which we'll look at some point once our summer dissipates, which I'm not ready for just yet. But let's not rush it. Quite important to not bother the bees too much at that time of year either, in those colder months, because they work so hard to keep the hive warm, and me just coming along and opening it just lets in all the doom and gloom. Why is there only ever one queen? Well, the reason there's only one queen bee in a hive is to maintain that stability within the colony. Now, she ensures clear leadership and reproduction while the worker bees do their thing. Now, this prevents competition as well, it ensures efficient reproduction, and it keeps the hive functioning smoothly. So let's just say, if there's more than one queen, get your popcorn ready because there's going to be a new Hunger Games. How many times have I been stung? Twice as a kid, but since beekeeping, which is almost 7 weeks now, 0. Because I tend to use my gloves and my suit every time I check them at the moment, even though my hive is super chilled out. Like, they're really, really chilled out. I'm not quite ready to migrate to checking them without the suit just yet. Another good question, can you treat a hive if it gets mites? Now, varroa mites are a problem, and this is a deep subject that needs a lot of reading and learning, and certainly worth chatting to a mentor or someone with more knowledge than you at this point. Now, it does vary across countries, but in New Zealand a number of controls include Apistan, Baverol or formic acid, which is potentially hazardous and needs careful control. What I do suggest though is doing research based on your own country. But here in New Zealand, I've put a link in the description section for a good document shared by the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, which details it across 127 pages. So there's a little bit of reading. Imagine if I stood here reading it out for you. No, take time to do your own research into that. What is the initial cost of a hive? it can vary so widely, and this is where I can sit down and take you through my bag. And then I'll give you a rough figure of what I've spent to get here. Now what I will do is say that don't use what I've spent already as a mere indication of what it will cost, because costs are ongoing and it might not necessarily be the same as the investment that you might put into it. But let's look anyway. Welcome to the back of my car. I've got all my gear here which I use to check the hive when I come down here, and I'll quickly run through it for you. I use TradeMe to purchase all of this. TradeMe in New Zealand is like Amazon, if you like. Now, the tool bag itself, this nifty little tool bag here, it's just a simple tool bag box. I mean, it's quite sturdy, whatever it is. Didn't spend a lot on this one, and I got this from the warehouse in New Zealand. Now, as the saying goes, you do get what you pay for, but so far my gear is working and it's exceptional quality for what I paid. But look, if it breaks, that's on me, and I'll consider it a lesson learned. But if I make these mistakes for you, then it might save you a headache down the line. Now personally, if I get some good mileage out of my $28 spend on gear, I'm happy as Larry. So 28 bucks for that, not too bad. Now the bee boxes that I'm using, I got those from an ex-beekeeper. 2 honey supers, half-depth boxes and 2 full-depth boxes. There's a lid and a roof, a queen excluder, baseboard and a feeder, which I'll use in the colder months, and I spent a lot of time cleaning those and painting them to make them look awesome. So a bit of work went into getting those boxes ready. It was free overall, but cost me a tin of acrylic outdoor paint. But I'm a fan of plastic frames with foundation on them. They're approximately $4 each. I've bought 20 of those so far, so $80. The 5-frame starter nuke was $250 that I got from my mentor Ash, who has helped me sort of get started with this. The bag itself, as I said, was about $28. I think it was more 25, so not too bad. The tools themselves, all in all, cost me 30 bucks. I'll show you. My Hive tool. This is the metal tool that I use to open the boxes and get the frames out. Perfect tool, good for scraping as well, to get some of that burr comb off, which is that additional comb that's stuck to the roof or in between frames that you don't really need. So that's my Hive tool. I've got a bee brush. Now bees are liquid, you know, when they group up together, they're like a liquid form, so the brush is good just to get them out of the way, so when you put a box back on, for instance, you don't squish them. You can get them off the frames as well if you need to make a bit of room. What else I've got in there too is I've got my frame grip. So it's a little grip there that goes on the top of the frame, and I can lift the frame out. I don't really use this because if I just let go a little bit, I'm going to drop the frame. I'd rather hold the frame from 2 sides with my hands. In here as well, eventually, when I do some honey harvesting, I've got this here, which I can actually use to scoop the wax off the top of the frames. The cappings off the top of the honey cells. But will I use it? I don't know. There may be easier ways, such as using a hot knife. I've got a scraper, which I just use in case I need it, but of course my Hive tool itself acts like a scraper anyway. Then I've got this, which is my, basically it's like a lighter. I use this for, I used it for creme brulees in the past, you know, to harden the sugar on the top of the creme brulee. Perfect little lighter here, which I use to light my smoker, which itself has got lots of pine shavings in it, so I'll light those and then use the bellows to just try and get the smoke going. And the thing is that I try not to use the smoke too much, because if you're busy doing your thing, the last thing you want is someone coming in and smoking you out. So let's talk about the costings. So the tools, $30 all up. The suit, which I've got here, it's all packed away, but you get the idea. The suit's all in here, and of course the gloves that come with that as well. And you get a lot of the wax and the propolis and honey on your gloves, so they can stick together a little bit. But look, that didn't cost me much either. The suit was 40 bucks, $15 for 2 bags of the pine shavings, which I got from a pet store. Then there's the cost of petrol to get to my hive, which is about 10 k's from home each way, but that's getting too far into it. So the total I've spent so far is approximately $440, with more costs very likely. If you're in this to make money, you're in for a bad time. So just be prepared to burn some money if you're truly dedicated to making this a hobby. And something else I like to do as well, this only cost $5, exercise book. I have made a little Andy's Hive log logo, which I haven't stuck onto the front of it yet, but I will. I'm pretty damn organised. But anyway, this is my diary. So every time I visit my hive, I write down what I've done. It's just so I can go back to it and see how I've progressed. So each visit I've done is documented here, which explains everything I've checked for, everything I've seen, and how the bees are behaving. So there's lots of little things here which I've not spent a lot of money on. But like I said, if you're in this to make money, you're in for a bad time, McCoy. Not too long now before we go and actually check the hives, but a big question is, can I sell my honey? Well, giving honey to friends and family or swapping it with them for produce is allowed, and that's not regulated under the Food Act. But bartering honey as part of a financial transaction and giving away samples of honey for promotional purposes, they're forms of sale. So these are subject to regulation under the Food Act. It's the same as physically selling it for cash. You have to do it right, as it's so closely governed. It's just not worth doing wrong. It's not worth the hassle or the potential fines. So, amazing questions. Hopefully that's answered a few things for you, and I do appreciate your follows. So if you do have any questions, please put them in the comments below and I'll answer them in the next episode. But while we're here, let's have a quick look at the general health of the hive. We'll check the honey box and see how they're going with filling it out, and we'll see if Queenie is still going for gold. Let's do it. Right, so today we have got a super active hive. What I'm just going to do now is light my smoker, which I hope not to use too much, because they are quite a chill hive, but sometimes you have to. What does the smoke do? Well, it can hide the attack pheromone. So you can see the smoke is already doing its thing. There we go. So it can just sort of calm them down a little bit if they're a little bit overactive. So what I'm going to do is open the roof. Do it very carefully. So at this point, it has been 7 days since I was last here. The roof is a little bit stuck down, so I do have to jimmy it up a bit, which is a good sign that there is something going on. Look at this, amazing. They're filling out these honey boxes now. If you have a look at this, there's a few of them there. So this is called burr comb. So it's just additional comb which I could probably scrape off and just keep, and then I can melt that down and use it as foundation for more frames that I do put in later. Okay, so what we refer to here is the honey super. So this is a box that only the workers can get into, because down the bottom is a queen excluder. Now the queen being slightly bigger than the workers, she can't get through the grid, which I'll show you in a second. So only the workers can get up here. She can't get in here and lay eggs. So all these girls do is make honey. And this is where the main honey harvest will come from. I'll give you an idea. So they work from the middle and they work out, which is why the outer frames don't have much to show for themselves. But that's fine. So let's have a look. As you can see, they're very focused in the middle. So we'll just loosen that a little bit. And as I say, I don't like to use my frame gripping tool. But look at this. They are filling out this frame beautifully. See all that? So they're basically busy putting lots of nectar into those cells, which I don't know if you can see it too well, is the shiny stuff in those open cells. And what's going to happen is the bees will fan that. They'll try and get the moisture content out of it, and then they'll start capping it, which is what they've started to do here. So under here is actual honey, and what they're doing pretty much is getting ready for those winter months. And they've got multiple of those going at the moment. We'll pull one more out and then we'll take the box off and we'll show you inside the brood chamber, which is the other box we've got. Let's take out the second frame. We've got a similar thing going on here. So just have a wee look at that. You see they're building a little bit of burr comb there, which is additional comb, which we really don't want. But they're doing a fantastic job filling that out with nectar, which will eventually become honey. I'm super, super impressed with these bees. They're doing amazingly. So what we'll do now is we'll let them continue here. Gravity doesn't matter to them, so I'll take this box off and actually put them on its side, just so it doesn't fall. And this box is quite stuck on, so I'm just going to lever the box off the queen excluder. And then we'll just move it out of the way. It is, oh man, it is real heavy. It is real heavy. It's a brilliant sign. So as you can see now, that's just placed down there. They're just going to keep doing what they're doing. So what we can see here is the queen excluder. So the queen cannot pass through these grids, which means only the workers can, as I said, and they can then make honey in that top box. Down here is the brood chamber. It's just a slight balancing act because they stick everything down. Isn't that incredible? Look at that. There is a lot of extra comb which they don't really need there. So we'll put that down. So what we're looking at now is the brood chamber. This is where all the little bees are growing. There are 10 frames in here, and as usual the bees will work their way out, but it's looking super full now. And the thing is, because a lot of these are full already, we're not often going to find the queen in these middle cells, so we'll likely find her in one of these outside ones. When I took the excluder off, I actually opened a few cells that were full of nectar or honey, so as you can see they're all feeding on it now. And these are possibly the bits of comb that I probably should remove just to stop it getting too cluttered and busy, and then I can, as I said, use it to melt down and put new foundation on some empty frames. I'm going to try my best to stay away from the front of the hive because that's where most of the activity is. As you can see, the bees are quite chill. I haven't needed to use any smoke yet. So let's have a quick look for the queen and just brush a couple of them out of the way, just so I don't squish them. And we'll just move them out of the way so that they come to no harm. Will we find the queen? So on this particular one there is a little bit of capped honey. As you can see, there is a little bit of capped honey up in the corner here, and mainly focused along the top of the frame as well. So they're quite busy there with that. There are cells here that the queen is laying into, which do have nectar in them. Also some pollen as well, which is denoted, and I really don't know how well you can see it, but it's denoted by lots of yellow bits in there. I apologise if it's not focusing too well. What you're seeing is all the girls doing their thing. I'll see if I can spot a drone. So there is a drone. I don't know how well you can see him. He's slightly larger. Hopefully it focuses in. But the drone is a slightly larger bee and it's got quite googly eyes. These girls are doing incredibly well. I'm just trying to see if I can spot the queen. There's lots of larvae in there as well. They're growing beautifully. I can see some eggs as well, which of course tells me that the queen is still busy doing her thing. Now, take a look at this. What we can look at here is these capped cells here with the lids on them is actually brood, which are likely workers. And then the slightly more elevated ones, the ones that really stick out quite a bit here, sort of just south of my thumb, is your drone brood. So those are the ones that will actually grow males. What I'm trying to find here and see if the queen is on this frame. If she isn't, we'll keep looking. I don't want to bother them too much. And she does get harder to find the more that the colony grows. Just going to give these girls a quick little smoke just in the general vicinity, because they're obviously today not really appreciating my visit, which is completely understandable. Now this frame that I'm pulling out now is actually one of the honey-bound frames, and it's quite heavy and it's quite stuck in there. But if I just pull it out for a second, you can have a really good look at what we call a full depth frame, which is completely capped honey. Have a look at that. So hopefully you can see that really clearly, and that's all capped honey. And just pulling that out, I have done a little bit of damage to the cappings. And you can see there, it's quite a darker looking honey. No sign of Queenie yet, but we'll keep looking. Alright ladies, alright. I won't bother you for too much longer, I just want to find your Royal Highness. Do you know what I love seeing actually, which is quite funny, is all these little bee butts sticking out of the front, out of the cells, tending to whatever's in there, or eating. So after some hunting, we have found the queen. So after a little bit of queen hunting, I finally found her. She's on one of the sort of the outer frames on the other side of the box to where I originally looked. Now, she can be quite elusive to find, and some beekeepers actually do mark their queens with a dot on their back. So there she is there. She's that bigger one with the more golden abdomen. She has a little black spot on just behind her head there, where the beekeepers do tend to mark with a highlighted acrylic pen, so she stands out. She's just venturing, oh no, she's coming back. And a lot of people think that queen bees are bumblebees, but they're not. They're just slightly bigger bees with a more golden abdomen, and she will spend her life laying. So as you can see, I'm an unexpected visitor, so they're a little bit all over the place now, but they will settle down if I leave them alone. So I have come here and I have checked all the things I need to check to make sure that the hive is healthy, and it really is. Obviously there's heaps of bees, there's lots of brood, there's lots of honey, there's no sign of disease. They're obviously not looking to swarm because there's no sign of them making a new queen or any swarm cells, etc., which we will explore more in future videos. But right now they're looking good. They're a little bit unrested, so we'll leave these girls to settle down and just keep doing what they're doing. Such good fun. And there was one more thing I was meant to do before I go. Merry Christmas, girls. So there we go, officially for the first episode. The hive's all checked. I've answered a few questions, and I do appreciate those questions, and do keep them coming. Put them in the comments, really, really good. But as you see, the hive is healthy. The bees, I mean, after a little while, they get a bit annoyed with you being around, but I've left them now. They're going to settle down again, and they're going to keep doing what they're doing. But I'm happy because they're healthy. There's lots of larvae, there's lots of eggs. The queen is still laying. You've met the queen now too, and you get a better idea of what she looks like and what she has to do. And we've answered some questions too, so thank you for all of your pre-feedback, and hopefully it's answered a lot of those questions. And you're still intrigued, and good luck if you're going on your own beekeeping journey as well. Do ask any questions, or if there's anything that you have noticed me do on the video that, you know, from your experience could be done better, just suggest it, and we'll have a look at it in the next episode. But anyway, that's been it. I'm happy, everyone's happy. It's a beautiful day, and I really do appreciate you being a part of Mind Your Buzzness. But anyway, I'll leave you with this. Why do bees have sticky hair? Because they use honeycombs. Sorry. I'm sorry. Anyway, catch you next time. Hopefully I won't have too many issues with my microphone and my cameras next time, because I tell you, it was a bit of a nightmare this time, so there's a bit of work to do to get this thing all edited together. But anyway, catch you next time. I'm Andy G, and this is Mind Your Buzzness.